The financial strain in their household was another red flag. Natasha had been handling the majority of the bills for months now, her hands full with Charlie's mounting medical expenses. Yet John was never there to offer any support, emotionally or financially. His excuses were always the same. I'm busy, I'm tied up with work. But as Natasha looked deeper, she found irregularities in their bank accounts, unexplained withdrawals, strange transactions that didn't match his claims. Even though she had a growing suspicion, confronting John was the last thing she wanted to do. She felt emotionally drained from Charlie's illness and wasn't sure if she could handle the truth about John. The tipping point came when Charlie's condition worsened. With her son's health rapidly declining, Natasha was forced to call John again, desperately hoping for his support. But when he answered the phone, his cold response was all too telling. "Why bother coming to the hospital? It won't change anything. Just get the doctor to bill him faster." His words cut through her, like a dagger to her heart. She had always hoped for a different reality, but this conversation made her realize the painful truth. John had checked out, and he had been for a long time. But Natasha couldn't confront him yet, not with Charlie's health hanging in the balance. Then, a family funeral loomed. It would force her to confront her suspicions once and for all. As the day of the funeral approached, Natasha's anxiety mounted. She had spent the past few days preparing for Charlie's final moments, all while keeping the facade of a perfect family for those around her. But the facade was beginning to crack. Natasha had started to piece together the shocking truths she had been ignoring, and now they all came to a head in the most unexpected way. The night before the funeral, Natasha had gone through Charlie's personal belongings, as painful as it was. It was then that she discovered something unexpected: Charlie's will. Hidden among his items was a letter he had written before his passing, one that expressed gratitude for the people who had been there for him. But as she read further, Natasha's hands began to shake. The letter revealed something that left her reeling. Charlie had known the truth about his father's infidelity. The will not only thanked his grandparents for their unwavering support, but also hinted at John's betrayal, something Natasha had suspected but never confirmed. Suddenly, everything clicked. Charlie's subtle hints about the lack of love between Natasha and John made sense now. He had known, but that wasn't all. As Natasha read further, she discovered another shocking detail. Charlie had been silently trying to protect her from the truth, not wanting her to be burdened by the reality of John's actions. At that moment, everything Natasha thought she knew about her marriage began to crumble. She realized that John's indifference towards Charlie's illness wasn't just neglect. It was the result of his emotional and physical abandonment of their family. With the letter in her hand, Natasha felt an overwhelming surge of anger and betrayal. But she also knew that now was the time to act. The funeral was only a day away, and as the relatives began to arrive, the tension between Natasha and John reached a breaking point. John arrived late, smelling of alcohol, his attitude dismissive as always. But Natasha knew now. Everything she had been avoiding had finally come to light. With Charlie gone, Natasha could no longer stay silent. The time for confrontation had arrived. The moment Natasha confronted John, the air felt thick with tension. It was the day of Charlie's funeral, and Natasha had had enough. She couldn't pretend any longer. With the letter from Charlie still clenched in her hand, she faced him in their living room, where he had just returned from an apparent meeting. His disheveled appearance and cold demeanor were all too familiar, but now they only served to fuel her anger. "John, we need to talk," Natasha said, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. "About everything." John scoffed, leaning back on the couch as if he didn't have a care in the world. "What now, Natasha? Is this some kind of emotional outburst? Can't you just let it go for once?" "No, I can't let it go," she replied, holding up the letter. "I know what you've been doing, And I know Charlie knew it too. John's face flushed, and for a split second, Natasha saw a flicker of guilt before it was replaced with defiance. You don't know what you're talking about, he spat. That kid was sick. Don't drag me into this mess now that he's gone. The cruelty of his words stung, but Natasha stood her ground. You're lying to me, John. You've been lying to me for years. The money you've been borrowing, your affair, it's all catching up with you. John's response was a bitter laugh. So you're finally figuring it out, huh? Don't act so righteous. You think I wanted any of this? I had my reasons. Stress, pressure. I did what I had to do. His justifications fell on deaf ears. Natasha was no longer the passive wife trying to hold a family together. She was a mother who had lost her child, and she wouldn't let him manipulate her any longer. You don't get to justify any of it. You've been cheating, using my family's money for your affair, and now you're sitting here acting like nothing happened. John's anger flared as he stood up. I don't need to explain myself to you. This is all your fault. You've been a terrible wife. You never supported me, never understood what I was going through. The audacity of his words was almost too much for Natasha to bear. But she took a deep breath, letting the anger fuel her next move. You're right about one thing, she said coldly. This is over. I won't stand by and let you ruin what little we have left. John's smug expression faltered as he realized the gravity of her words. What? Are you serious? You can't just throw everything away like that. Yes, I can, Natasha responded, her voice unwavering. You've ruined everything, John. Now I'm taking control. John didn't know how to respond, and as he stammered, Natasha walked over to the table where she'd placed the divorce papers. She slid them in front of him. Sign it, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you've done. As John sat there, seething but silent, Natasha knew this confrontation was only the beginning. The battle for her future, for Charlie's memory, and for her own peace of mind had only just begun. The fallout from the confrontation with John was immediate and explosive. Natasha had expected anger, but she hadn't anticipated just how far John would go to avoid facing the consequences of his actions. After she left the house, John began to frantically call, leaving desperate voicemails and text messages, trying to manipulate her into reconsidering. Don't do this, Natasha. I'll change. We can fix everything. Think about Charlie. Think about us. But Natasha had made up her mind. Her heart ached for Charlie, but she wasn't going to let John tear apart her future any longer. She spent the next few days gathering her strength and making practical plans, hiring a lawyer to handle the divorce proceedings, and exploring the extent of the financial mess John had created. Meanwhile, Natasha's family and friends had mixed reactions to her decision. Some, like her parents, rallied around her, offering comfort and support as they watched her take back control of her life. Others, especially those who had been close to John, couldn't believe what had happened. He's a good guy at heart, they said, trying to downplay his actions. Maybe he made a mistake, but this is too extreme. Despite their attempts to sway her, Natasha remained firm. She had already learned of the depths of John's betrayal, including his secret debts and the other women he had been involved with. With each new revelation, the anger she had felt earlier began to transform into determination. She wasn't just divorcing John. She was reclaiming her life, her dignity, and everything that had been stolen from her. John's desperation grew as his financial problems spiraled out of control. His attempts to guilt Natasha into forgiving him became more frequent, each call more frantic than the last. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Natasha. Don't leave me with nothing, he pleaded, but Natasha remained unmoved. The reality of the situation hit John hard. The debts he had accumulated, the lies he had told, and the betrayal he had caused were all too much to overcome. As he realized the extent of his losses, he resorted to more desperate measures. Natasha knew it was only a matter of time before he tried to manipulate her again. But this time, she wasn't going to fall for it. She had resolved to move forward, not just for herself but for Charlie. The pain of losing her son would never fade, but she was determined to live in a way that honored his memory. Natasha would stand firm, no matter the cost. She had learned the hard way that no one, least of all John, could control her anymore. Just when Natasha thought she had everything figured out, the ground beneath her shifted once more. She was going through the last of the financial documents John had left behind, legal papers, loan statements, and old contracts, when she discovered something that made her blood run cold. A bank statement, hidden deep in a drawer, revealed an account she had never seen before, one that John had kept in his name alone. It wasn't just a small savings account. No, it was much larger. $500,000 in unexplained deposits. At first, she thought it might be another of his reckless investments or debts. But as she dug deeper, it became clear. The money wasn't just mismanagement. It was a betrayal on a scale she hadn't even considered. A note on the account mentioned a third party, and Natasha's heart sank. Could there have been someone else pulling the strings behind John's financial chaos? Was there a deeper conspiracy? Something she hadn't even suspected? As she continued to investigate, she uncovered something even more shocking. Cheryl, the woman John had been having an affair with, wasn't just an innocent party in this mess. She had played a significant role in manipulating John. Natasha had thought Cheryl was just a symptom of the betrayal, but it turned out that Cheryl had been involved in the financial scheming all along, siphoning off money to fund her own lavish lifestyle. Cheryl had been in on it from the beginning, using her influence over John to line her own pockets. The more Natasha discovered, the more she realized that everything she had known about her marriage and about herself had been a lie. This wasn't just about a cheating spouse. This was a carefully orchestrated con. The stakes had risen beyond anything she had imagined, and now she had a moral dilemma. Could she go after John and Cheryl legally? Or would this all spiral into something even darker, more dangerous, than she had ever considered? The discovery of the hidden accounts and Cheryl's involvement threw Natasha into a whirlwind of confusion and anger, but it also gave her the clarity she needed to face John one final time. She wasn't just confronting a husband who had betrayed her with another woman. She was confronting a man who had orchestrated a massive financial scheme that had not only ruined her life, but had put her and Charlie's future in jeopardy. With everything on the line, Natasha arranged one final meeting with John. This time, she wasn't going to let him manipulate her with his usual charm or empty promises. She sat down across from him, her heart pounding, but her resolve unshakable. "John, it's over," she said, her voice firm. "I know everything. The money, the lies, your involvement with Cheryl. You thought you could get away with this, didn't you?" John's face drained of color. "Natasha, please. I didn't mean for it to get so out of hand. You have to understand." "No, I don't understand." She cut him off, her eyes cold. "What I understand is that you've been using me, using my family, for your own selfish gain. You've destroyed everything, John, but I won't let you get away with it. You'll pay for this, and I'm not just talking about the divorce." John's face twisted with fear. "What are you talking about? What do you want from me?" "I want you to be held accountable. For what you've done, for what you've stolen from me and Charlie," Natasha declared, placing the divorce papers on the table. "Sign it, and know that I'll be taking everything you've worked to hide. You'll never have peace again. And as for Cheryl, I'm going after her too." The finality of her words was like a punch to the gut for John. He stood up, backing away from the table, his face contorted in disbelief. "You're making a huge mistake. You don't know what you're doing." But Natasha didn't waver. She had taken control of her life, and nothing could shake her resolve now. John's last-ditch attempt at manipulation failed miserably as Natasha moved forward with her legal battle, seeking justice for the lies, debts, and betrayal. The divorce was finalized quickly, with John receiving the full consequences of his actions. His assets were seized, his debts came crashing down, and the lies he had built his life on crumbled. Cheryl, too, faced legal repercussions, her financial manipulations exposed for everyone to see. As the dust settled, Natasha began to rebuild her life. She was no longer the woman tied to a broken marriage. She was free. The pain of losing Charlie would never fade, but Natasha learned to honor his memory in her own way, with strength and resilience. She started fresh, determined to live life on her own terms, knowing that while the past had broken her, she had emerged from the wreckage stronger, more determined, and more in control than ever before. The lessons of betrayal had left scars, but they also gave her the courage to stand tall and never allow anyone to destroy her again. As Natasha sat by the ocean, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore brought a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. The emotional toll of her journey, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the endless battles had nearly consumed her. But now, looking out at the vast horizon, she realized how far she had come. The anger had faded, replaced by a quiet strength and a deep sense of peace. She had lost so much, but she had also gained something invaluable: her sense of self, her independence, and a future she could shape on her own terms. In her hand, she held the last letter from Charlie, the words of gratitude and love still fresh in her heart. "Stay true to yourself, stay healthy, and live a long life," it read. It was a message she would carry with her always, a reminder of the love that had sustained her through the darkest times. She had faced betrayal head-on, rebuilt her life from the ashes, and emerged stronger. And as she looked to the future, she knew that no matter what came next, she was ready. Because sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the greatest transformations. What would you do if you had the power to reclaim everything that was taken from you? What would you do if you had the power to reclaim everything that was taken from you?